Hey, this is JD Frost, and welcome to the Daily Ledger podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in and listening. And if you have not written a review about the podcast, please do so. I've got a very special guest, Tim Storey, on the podcast today. If you have not heard of Tim Storey, you need to Google his name and look him up right now. He's spoken in front of thousands of people all across the world. And I think you've spoken in over 80 countries. Is that correct, Tim? In over 80 countries. In my opinion, he's the best life coach that you can get. He has been a life coach to the stars and has helped me tremendously over the last 3 to 4 years that I've been working with him. Tim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
What a privilege. I love your whole set.
Oh, yeah?
Going on in the background. A lot of excitement.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of different memories and stuff. This was probably one of my favorite things was this Chatter magazine. They have it like I had a album out. You know?
That's what it looks like.
Maybe if I work with you long enough, I'll get an album deal, you know? But no, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I always enjoy talking with you, Tim, and it's just so easy to talk to you. And you know what I love most about working with you is when you work with you one-on-one, I know you've done like the research, you know, you really study and you really think about who you're working with, what they're going through, what they've been up to. And also the speaking that you do has always inspired me. And you're actually going to be a speaker. I believe we've got you down for the Onward Experience. Is that correct?
We do. I'm super, super excited because there's so many great speakers out there nowadays. So thank you for inviting me again. And I am looking forward to it. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So what have you been up to lately that those listening might be interested in? What's your newest gig that you've been working on? I know you're always working on something.
Yeah, I think that the core of who I've always been is a humanitarian. I really started to get a heart for people that are hurting ever since I was a little kid. I remember there was this young kid named Freddie who was my neighbor. And we were in the 6th grade and we were doing these long laps for PE. And Freddie stopped. He wasn't breathing too well. He was a little bit of a chunky kid. And I remember, even though I was winning this race and I was very competitive with this one guy named Don, I stopped because Freddie was in trouble. And I said, Freddie, are you okay? He said, no. And he said, I'm having an asthma attack. I said, what do you need? He says, I need my inhaler. I'll never forget, JD, that I got Freddie. I'm only in 6th grade and I'm like carrying him and yelling at the PE teacher. We get his inhaler and then everything was okay. I think like never before, I have an eye for those who are not okay. We're living in a world that is just trumpeting, like, be the greatest, be the best, beat everybody. And there's something in that that can be good. And that is the fact that God called us to do things that are at next level, right? But at the same time, we can't forget those people that are hurting, that have had setbacks, that are challenged. And so for me, I think that where I'm at in life, I'm really enjoying my projects, but I'm very called to continue to lift up hurting people. That's really on the forefront of my mind.
I think that's what spoke to me the most when you talked about your speech, when you talk about turning your setbacks into your comebacks.
Yeah.
I think that resonated a lot with me. And I don't think that's what you spoke on at 10X, at that 10X2 when I first heard you.
No.
It was, when was that when you first came out with that, what I would call material or that thought process? When was that?
The setback to comeback I came up with many, many years ago. And the whole idea is that I felt that when most people had a setback, they would sit in the setback.
Right.
And then they would settle in that setback. And think about it in both of our lives, is that many times when you have a setback, whether it's a weight problem, whether it's a challenge in our relationships, challenge at our job, some kind of challenge that we're dealing with in our lives, it's so easy to sit in it, and it's easy to settle in it and live in what I call the land of okay. Like, no, I'm good. Like, you don't really seem like yourself. No, I'm good. That's that land of okay. And I feel that so many of our friends have settled in a setback, and they're stuck in the land of okay.
When you hear, I see some people post from time to time, and they're like, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right." How do you reconcile that with settling in the land of okay?
Yeah, I think it's two different things, because I'm okay with somebody saying it's going to be okay, which means
Gotcha.
now you're in a bad spot, and I'm believing it's going to be better. But the other reference to this idea of the land of okay is almost a distance that we put between who we're supposed to be, who we presently are.
Okay.
We've all been there. So let's say we're struggling in an area of our life, and somebody says to you like, hey JD, like, how are you doing? Like, I'm okay. So what that means is that I'm living in the common, I'm living in the normal, I'm living in the mundane, which is never where we were called to live. And so we might visit these places of common, regular, mundane, but it's never what we were called to do. And I learned that by working with children at an early age, speaking to kids, and motivating them even in my early 20s. When I'd go to these schools around the world, mostly in third world nations, I'd say, what do you want to be when you get older? And it was always like lofty things, like a professional football player, professional NBA player. It was never like, they were never saying, I want to just do something regular. So I think that we have to shake up ourselves a little bit and go back to the innocence of who we are really meant to be.
And when you're talking about people visiting the land of okay, I mean, would you rather somebody, when you ask them, do you know somebody's on the way back? How do I say it? How do you know when somebody's on the way back from a comeback, that they're not settling their setback? Is it the fact that they admit that they're like, you know what, I'm really struggling, Tim?
Yeah. I think that like in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, which is a famous chapter, there was a group called the Byrds in the late 60s that wrote a song called Time, Time, Time. It's about times and seasons. It says there's a time to be silent and a time to speak. And there are seasons of silence in all of our lives. It could be a job that we don't like. It could be a challenge in your relationship. It could be that somebody divorced you. It could be an illness. So there are seasons of silence, okay? So in that season of silence, we can learn from the painful times, which I've been through them, you've been through them. But there's also a season where life tries to pump up the volume. And I think that some people sit in the season of silence, not realizing that their life is supposed to get loud. It's very powerful.
Can you say that? Can you say that again, actually?
Yeah, I think that some people are sitting in a season of silence, not realizing that life is calling them to get very loud. Like, for instance, when I was a kid in Compton, California, and we were lower income, I didn't know that someday that I'd be picked up on the shoulders of Oprah Winfrey, and she would toss me out to the world. And so many more people would know my name because she began to trumpet me and put me on all kinds of platforms and put me on television and put me on her specials and take me on tour, so what if I just said, no, my life is like, I'm lower income, I'm going to sit in my season of silence. No, I needed to pay attention when life is calling me to step out into a life that was loud.
How do you step out to a life that was loud if you don't have somebody like Oprah promoting you like that?
Well, I think loud is just the volume going up. The volume going up is, to me, little things. Your kids want you to play with them. You just came home from work. You don't really want to play. So sometimes you make excuses. To pump up the volume is to say, I'm going to go do it.
Okay.
To pump up the volume is truly to cooperate with the season that you're now in. And that is maybe to start a new business, to choose to scale your business to a higher level.
Whatever that volume is, you're just embracing it and accepting it.
Because to me, I've never been about the guy that like, this is mega success and this is like middle success. I think the guy that is working as the guy who comes and gets our trash, who works for that type of a company and drives a truck, but he's a good man and an honorable man and takes care of his kids, he's just as cool as Richard Branson in my eyes.
Right. And so, this idea that has always helped me, that hopefully anybody listening here that might be going through that, what they feel is a setback, and turning that into a comeback. How do people do that? Like, remind me and anybody listening, how do we do that practically?
Yeah, so there are steps, and as you know, I'm all about studying, so I'm like nonstop notes. Yeah, so I have probably 3,000 pages of notes that are like this on various subjects that are all my original notes.
Right.
But the first thing one has to do when you have a setback is you have to become awake. And sometimes it is a life interruption that causes one to be awake. It could be, to some, their spouse says, enough is enough. Or their kids are like, you're never home. Or your boss says, something's missing. The number one, you have to become awake. Secondly, you have to take inventory. And JD, that is something that a lot of people I know will not do. They will not take real inventory of, okay, I'm at this age, I'm at this stage, and this is really how my life is. Because taking inventory can be very difficult because we're living in a world full of filters. That, like, if you post something on Instagram, you can choose these various filters. We do the same thing in our lives.
Taking the inventory, you got to remove that filter to take a true inventory.
Yeah, so that's a big thing right now, that if you watch TikTok, a lot of these ladies are saying, like, look at this new filter where I don't even look like myself. And then they show themselves like just getting out of bed, and they look, like they just got out of bed. They show themselves with the filter.
Good recovery, Tim.
Yeah. Just in case my future wife is watching. Honey, I'm sorry.
Okay.
See that?
I'm sorry. I couldn't let that go. I had to talk about it. Go ahead. Like, they just got out of bed.
You know that I'm good with words. Yeah, so what happens is that same thing in life, like we try to put the filter on the reality of we're not doing so well. So you got to become awake, you got to take proper inventory. Third, and you know this as well as anybody, you have to partner with the right people.
Yep.
So in you turning your setback into comeback in certain areas of your life, you've spoken publicly about how you needed to partner with the right people. You needed to partner with your faith again in a strong way, partner with the right friends again, right?
Yep.
But to partner with the right people, that means we need to cut ties with other people who are not the right people in our lives.
Yeah, I think the toughest thing about turning a setback into a comeback is that the change up of the people and the realization that your life is going to look differently. No matter, for me, it was, alcoholism, but for somebody else, it could be just a setback at work. It could be a setback of, financially. It could be a setback of something happening with your kid's health or whatever. It requires you to act and be around different people and act a different way and look at life a different way, for sure. And I think that taking that inventory too, at least for me, is a lot easier when you have somebody else that you trust. That's why I like reaching out to you as a coach, reaching out to other mentors that I have to help me take that inventory, because for me, the inventory hasn't worked. I haven't been able to take the filter off by myself. I have to have that other objective point of view to help me see without the filter, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that is your strength. I think that a lot of strong CEOs that I know will not rely on someone else. So I think the fact that you've learned that you need to partner with the right people is actually a strength that is a wonderful strength that you have.
Yeah.
It's a strength that I also have. I need people in my life.
Right.
I feed off people, and you know that because we're very good friends. You notice when I'm at breakfast with people, I'm not holding court as it's Tim Storey, the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like on an equal plane with everybody, no matter who comes to the table, because you never know what you can learn, how you could be encouraged. So I just want to say this real quick. What does a comeback look like? To me, a comeback is to get back to life. So there's a scripture in the Bible that says that Jesus came to give you life and life more abundantly. The word life in the Bible means an animated life. And I feel that a lot of people stopped being animated in their mind, animated in their spirit, animated in the movements. And what I am really happy about my life is that I have protected my animation. I'm still very animated, even in the midst of all the stuff I've been through.
I love that. And when you're talking about like, I feel like that I've had more of a comeback, where I feel like the most that I've come back is when I have these challenges that I set out for myself that I overcome, some that people see, some that don't.
Yeah.
For me, like, even something as simple as cold plunging. I mean, I kind of embarrassed to even admit it, but like doing that to me feels like a comeback every time, because I'm doing the thing that is, number one, different than a lot of other people. Number two is it's training my brain to do something that I know I don't want to do, but I still do it anyway. So I don't negotiate. And I'm like, I'm not gonna sit in here like in that setback and settle back in. I'm going to get out, I'm going to do something that's different. Maybe that's a part of that animation you were talking about.
It 100% is. And so what happens is that you lead me right to the title of that book. So I wrote a book called Come Back and Beyond. So a comeback is never to go back to just an original place, but it's to go beyond. And this is what thing I love about you, is that some people that are new to your show don't know how good a golfer you are. And that the fact that there was at one time you were kind of chubby and now you're not.
Right.
They don't know that even though you have a beautiful wife and beautiful kids, that at times you were too busy. And they don't understand that you've had challenges in how to run a mega business.
Correct.
So what I'm loving about watching your journey is that you didn't just have a comeback, but you had to come back and beyond. And beyond, to me, is doing things you've never done before to get somewhere you've never been before, like the cold plunge, like a marathon in under 5 minutes. That's a comeback.
5 hours. 5 hours.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
5 minutes would have been quick. But But let's go there for a minute. A marathon in under 5 hours is really big stuff, because you had to push yourself to places that you either knew you could go or didn't know you could go. But that's everybody watching right now.
Right.
Because as we say, life is a marathon, right?
Right. Yeah, totally. And yeah, I mean, I don't think, maybe you've said it, but I'm sure you've said it before and I just didn't hear it, but the comeback and beyond,
Yeah.
I love that beyond part.
Yeah.
That's what I get to experience with a lot of other people that I get to help on a regular basis, because it's like, okay, we fixed this problem maybe in your business or maybe in your mentality or your mindset, or overcoming some kind of hurdle, and through this simple exercise. But like, now what are you going to do?
So
Now how are you going to be able to do it? And I think that's what I am trying to help people understand in the book that I wrote, The Life Ledger, of like, okay, now that we've established what these asset activities are in our lives, how can we put more of them in our life to help us actually reach our goals, and to actually account for our time?
yeah.
And so I
Okay.
love that aspect of the beyond part there.
Yes.
I never heard you talk about that before,
How do people get Life Ledger if they want to get that right now? How can they get you?
they go to www.thelifeledgerbook.com.
Yes. And I love you so much. I promoted it 2 times.
I know you.
Okay, Life Ledger, you got to get that. I have it right in my office over here.
I appreciate that.
Life Ledger, and it'll build you up in every area of your life. So yeah, the comeback and beyond, we are created to go beyond our limits, boundaries, barriers. And guess what? It becomes contagious. Your children will start to watch it.
Yes.
Your children will begin to watch it. And so you will lengthen the stride of the entire family.
Well, can I tell you a personal story on that real quick? Just in my middle child, Sally, she is the most like me, and she's always been a volleyball player.
Yeah.
And just this year, she was like, I'm going to try lacrosse, like out of the blue. Like, this is what I'm going to do. She goes to practice. She has no idea how to play lacrosse, like no clue. And, starts practicing. She's an 8th grader. Now she's playing on the varsity lacrosse team. And like now, and so she's actually not even just playing it. She's actually moving up to another level, which I'm obviously very proud of her for doing. But that's like, for me, when you just said that it translates to your kids, it does immediately. And so your ability to be able to get to not settle in that setback and get that comeback and beyond, it literally happens. And it's happened in my life. And obviously you've been a huge part of that, Tim, and helping me to understand that there is that beyond. And to
I love what you're telling me about your daughter, because you see what she had to do. She had to go into unknown territory. So for all of you that are watching right now,
yes,
maybe life is calling you guys to go into unknown territory. She had to learn new rules, new skill sets, right?
yeah, new uniform, new like weird mask that you have to wear.
Oh yeah.
And not to drive it home too much, but I mean, she got out of that land of okay, that what I think the land of okay. And when I think about that, it's like the comfortable place.
100%.
Like, I'm okay. Like, okay, meh, and getting outside that boundary is just interesting. There's no way that she would have tried things like that if I had not turned that setback into a comeback multiple times over in different areas of my life. And thank you for, like, I literally am just thinking about that right now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for helping me with that. I mean,
Well,
that's a big part of what you're doing.
Thank you too for helping so many people. And so one reason I've always loved our connection, number one, we're friends first, but me as somebody who's older than you, I don't just see JD Frost. I see the thousands and thousands of people's lives that you're going to influence.
Mm.
And so I see that through your conferences, through your books, through your educational courses teaching us about finances, you know, you are helping tens of thousands of people. So I think by affecting your life, that it makes me feel good because you're helping so many others.
Oh man, thank you so much. And obviously that's how it works, right? Um, what's the how do people reach you, Tim? What's the best way for somebody to start working with you? I know you have your book club out right now that, man, you get so many views. It was amazing.
So many.
It was amazing how you do that. I'm very intrigued by how you've made that happen. Obviously from all your work over the years, but what's the best way for people to reach out to you and get to know what you're
I'm
doing?
excited. We just created a new website called timstorey.com.
Okay.
So Tim Storey, STOREY.com. And it's all things Tim Storey. You could find out about a book club because I am a bookworm. I read a lot of books or listen audio. So we have from our book clubs to our Tim Storey lives that JD and his company many times. Thank you for doing what you do. Some people don't know that side about you, the humanitarian philanthropic side. You help me reach a lot of people. Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
We just recently did a Tim Storey live with about 300 people in the Hollywood area. But guys, we're helping people that need help, and then we put it out there in the airwaves. So timstorey.com is the best way to find out about what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Daily Ledger podcast. I really appreciate it. And I know that there's somebody that's listening that's going to turn their setback into a comeback today from listening to this podcast. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
See you soon.